Did you listen to any of these clips of the interview of Dave with Chris Van Fleet?
No.
Absolutely hysterical. I mean,
Really?
like Van Fleet's like he's the first guy that like ever that pressed Dave on like let's like basically saying, okay, dude, what's up with your how do you go about your star ratings, right? Bro, they had like a 10 to 15 minute conversation on it. And Dave was just like he kept pressing him and he was
what
like
going
saying
on? He wasn't giving him a straight answer or something?
well,
Or
well,
he
just
couldn't tell him exactly?
Dave doesn't have an exact thing, right? He's just like, well, I
Right.
watched the match, but the funny part was what he was saying, like, he's going like Dave, between like 2000.
Do you want to hear?
Yeah, go ahead and play it.
I have one here. Yeah.
How long is this clip though? There's like a 7-minute clip in there that's perfect.
I could play that one, but this is 90 seconds.
Okay, play. You kind of got to hear. It's better as it goes along. Try to find. We'll get back to it. We'll
I saw it here. I just didn't know if you'd want to hear the whole thing. This is it.
No, it's like a 7-minute because it's a very entertaining listen. So he's like, yeah, go ahead and find the 7 minutes.
Who is this guy? I've seen him before in the dressing room in Impact.
Very good. He's this guy that I had no idea who he was. He's kind of like a guy on the scene, and he does wrestling interviews. He interviews the wrestlers and stuff, and he's a good interviewer. Very respectful. Yes, he's not some mark. He looks good. He's built. He's got a good. He works out. Like he had a training. Like he trained with Kevin Kerr. He trained with Cross. Like they did a workout session. Always. So yeah. So the guy's like he's just very respectful here. And just like the way he pressed him it's just did you see like any of the clips where Tucker Carlson was torturing these presidential candidates, just made them all look stupid on the stage this past weekend?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is very similar. All right.
Wow.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's like do you do the reverse? Do you look at matches now and go, man, I get that 4.25, but that really is a 5-star match now?
No. I mean, I think that if anything, it's actually harder, but there's more of them because you have. Back then, it was wrestlers had a different mentality in the sense of now they know it's like the mentality of going into a show used to be, there wasn't as much drive to put on this incredible match, and believe me, that has its good and its bad because like, again, when I watch an AEW big show, just an example, I feel like there's so many risks and it scares me. Like one risk is in, like WWE, you might get one big risk spot in the match and it's memorable and everything like that. But when there's so many, like when I watch a Darby or Sammy Guevara or somebody like that, and it scares me, like they and that's one of the reasons why also the matches are, getting these great crowd reactions because they're working for crowd reactions.
Sure.
And the crowd does react to it. And younger, hungrier guys are going to do crazier and crazier things, and we've seen that, and it's good and it's bad.
Was there a point in the 2000s when it was you were tougher on ratings? Because I think in the 2000s, 2000 to 2010, you only had 7 5-star matches for that entire decade.
I didn't think there were as many great the matches.
Did you just not watch TNA? I'm just so curious.
TNA. I watched TNA religiously.
Oh man,
I watched every TNA pay-per-view. There were all kinds of 4-star matches back then. And I actually, if you look back on the different, you'll see it. 5-star match is like, to me, 5-star match, even today, should be like, okay, this is probably going to win match of the year. And when I look at that, back then, like now, there's more because it's just like there's so much and it gets over so big in the sense of, because guys are working for that.
Yeah.
They're, but even now, there's, I'm going to hear a lot more about, this match should be 5 stars. And it's like, to me, it's like, if I don't think that this is going to be somewhere pretty damn high in the ballot for match of the year, then it's not a 5-star match, especially now, or even then. Granted, there were years that the 4 3/4 or 4.5-star matches won match of the year. And that would never, that could happen now too, because again.
But what about the list of people who never had 5-star matches? I'm sure you're familiar with the people.
I don't even worry about it because it's like.
But these are legends: Eddie Guerrero, Triple H, Randy Savage, Kurt Angle, and it's crazy. Rob Van Dam,
Taker, probably.
How many 4-star matches? It's 4 stars is what you should be looking at, not 5. 5 means. Like it's a completely different animal.
But then you got someone like Kenny Omega who has 10 5 or better matches.
Yeah. So.
But then if you're like, well, fours are what matters, then
fours is what matters. I mean, like, hey, Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay and Misawa, those guys.
Yeah,
they're incredible. I mean, Absolutely. They're incredible. They're incredible, and they were put in positions to have those matches where most of these guys, Kurt, as an example, I mean, if Kurt was put in a position with a Misawa, if that's a guy, or maybe a Kobashi or whatever. I mean, he did with Chris. And like I said, I came close with but it's like, I've always thought Kurt Angle was great. He's got tons of 4-star matches, 4.5-star matches, whatever. 4-star match with Matt Morgan. But it's like, the reason he doesn't have a 5, it's what, am I biased against him? I probably voted for him in the Hall of Fame years early. It's just, it's a certain match. And maybe he never had the perfect opponent. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It's not, I don't like think and go like, oh, he's Kurt Angle, he deserves one. And nobody deserves one. When people go like, why isn't this match 5 stars? I always like, man, it's like, it's like, what didn't it have? And it's like, if it's over 4, it had it.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about 5 has to be when this thing's over, I'm going like,
yeah,
this, if it was in the past, I would go, this would match of the year. And now it's got to be, man, this should be talked about for match of the year. And even 4 3/4 means it should be talked about. And a 5 now would be a match where I would go like, this would have won match of the year every, most years when I was a kid.
But I mean, WWE's had 9 in their entire history. AEW has had 21 in 4 years.
AEW's wrestlers work much harder to in that style. CMLL, which is my favorite style of wrestling, by the way, or was. I mean, I like all styles. See, how many CMLL have?
I don't know. I have to pull that stat up.
It might. I don't know. There might be 0. And I mean, and because the CMLL style that I love is not something conducive. It's absolutely conducive to.
I think it is 0. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. My favorite style from childhood.
Wow.
Okay? And the reason is because the CMLL style is conducive to 4-star matches, but there's something that makes a 5-star match that their style is not conducive to. And I would say the same thing about WWE's style in general, although there are exceptions. Sometimes it just the right thing and the right magic happens. And it is that, but NXT had that all the time. There's many NXT matches because NXT,
I think there's 9.
Well, then there's your answer, and that's the same company, but it's the style that they're working for. The WWE, the NXT style was a lot more based on, like what we talked about, trying new things.
Press pause real quick. Yeah. Okay, but Konnan, before they got into this part of the discussion, there was a big discussion before this, and Dave was talking about the things that he puts into like 5-star matches is like doing different things, like going outside the box, and so like doing like when you go this way, you think something's going to go this way, it goes that way, like he's talking about like the. Like just outside the box type stuff is swerves that just okay. So, but that's got to be they talked about this earlier. So you continue, okay?
And giving guys more time in main events, or matching guys up that are going to deliver a great match, which was part of that thing. Whereas with WWE, that's you're doing feuds and you're doing it's just a different thing. It's not really conducive. It's like it's not as conducive to a 5-star match.
It's really not conducive to the style of match that you like, right?
It's no. I mean,
New Japan has 82 5-star or better.
Yeah,
matches.
Well, I mean, I know, and
TNA has 1. Yeah, WWE has 9. Like it just seems like there's a certain style of match that you prefer, and that's
I mean, the way that they build in Climax. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a good conversation, bro. He's a good interviewer. That guy. He was very good. Right. He's very good there. And he had his stats. He's like asked him like, but that is the most ridiculous. That Dave was talking about that New Japan style is the best because they hit harder. They're
whose style do you like more, Joe's or Chris Van Fleet?
I like Chris Van Fleet.
Oh, I say that Joe, and I'm not hating. I'm just stating your what do you call this? The length of your beard. Mm-hmm. And the multicolored look has mega heat with me. And the glasses.
I think it'll be gone this week. I think it's time to start.
Is your wife like that?
No, not when it gets like this.
Well, why don't you shave?
Yeah, it looks scraggly as.
I'm just,
bro. You got Manscaped. Why don't you use that?
Yeah. I don't use it where you can see.
I don't know, but Dave was talking about
Well, we can see your face. How about using it there?
Yeah, I'm gonna clean it up this week. I'm going away this week.
Is that your excuse if somebody goes, "Why is your beard scraggly?" Well, my are clean.
You should play like ZZ Top. You know, like when we introduced him. No, it's just funny because like Dave was talking about how the work today is better.
Right.
Which is why I'm like, come on, like, but the thing is, and the problem is, the guys today, they do what Dave likes. More athletic, doing different things and stuff and all that. Because I think maybe the fact that Dave watched so much wrestling growing up, like over the years, like from the early '90s, right, or late '80s, really, is that like we were more basic with our work, and the fundamentals of the work. You can't even argue this. Our fundamentals were way better than the fundamentals today. Like punching, even lockups, wrestle. We wrestled more. And we didn't like get right into going into high school. Like you'd take a guy down, you'd roll over, front chancery on the guy, reverse hammer. We wrestled a lot.
Right.
And so like our wrestling skills were more polished in this generation because they don't do it a lot. They get into the acrobatics, the dives and stuff, and then Dave just likes that style more. And so it and because he has a lot of influence, he promotes that style. And it's like, but in the historical context of work, it's like. The people in our business, when you're trained to work, you're trained to make it look as real as possible while taking care of your opponent and taking care of you and make it as realistic and, taking good bumps, punching a guy, he's selling it, looking like he really hit him and stuff. And they just don't do that today. They do other things. And it's like, I would just profess that like, he likes this modern style and I like the old school style where the fundamentals.
Well, at the end of the day, bro, it's like anything else. If somebody says, "Oh, well, this movie was good," and then you go and it sucks, you're not gonna like it because he liked it. It's up to you to like what you want, not just because Dave says he likes it. But and I'll also say, I was very lucky. I was thinking about this the other day. I was very lucky because very, very, very early in my career, I figured out what got over wrestling, and I immediately applied it. And I knew it wasn't wrestling or everybody else was trying to wrestle.
Right.
And
me too.
I remember when I went to Eddie Guerrero's house, his dad was there, who's considered the greatest wrestler in Mexican history. This guy was starting riots, had to bring out the National Guard. Just very special.
Best wrestler
man.
Or best worker, like in content,
Yeah, best both.
Okay.
Yeah. He was incredible. And so he
But Neil Moscas would disagree with that, probably, right?
Well, probably, or maybe, yeah, and or maybe L.A. Park. Right. And so I went to their house because he had a big library full of wrestling books, and it was books, and so he would have me check them out, like if they were like a library card, I had to check them out. And I remember one time when I was sitting with him, he goes, I go, "How did you invent the camel clutch?" And he goes, "Well, if I would have listened to traditional wisdom, I would have never done it because it went against everything that was traditional in wrestling." He goes, "Don't be afraid to, go outside of the box, and be original and creative and be different. That's going to get more over than anything else." And then that always stuck with me. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Plus, you see it in all.
And everywhere.
The genre of, like, if you want to put professional wrestling stuff all under the prism of combat sports, like combat sports evolved. Remember, like when in the early was it 30 years? God, UFC started like 30 years ago, right?
Yeah, the guys were getting their teeth knocked out.
Remember, like they had the discipline, the karate versus pit fighter.
Right?
Yeah. Tank Abbott. He was just coming there like slinging the guy, like a video game. And now it's like all the disciplines have involved into, like, you got a guy like Yair Rodriguez is doing cartwheel kicks and everything. You know what I'm saying? Right. So they evolved and tried something different.
It's interesting. I was just looking at it because ECW, I don't know how many 5 stars they have, but it looks like maybe 1 or 2. And one of them was Hoovy and Ray from the arena in ECW, right? But if today's AEW are doing all these 5-star matches, and a lot of the ones that he rates high will have table spots or maybe even barbed wire table that Omega and Moxley did, that's getting highly rated now. Matches like Van Dam and Jerry Lynn could never crack the 5-star scale or whatever. And if you just real quick, if you remember in the late 90s, DI, that Van Damme and Jerry Lynn was like the smarks. Those were the greatest matches ever. Right? Yeah.
Dave was talking about, like Chris is pressing him, and he's basically saying like, hey, like this is, you're basically just talking about stuff that you like. He kept bringing that up, like so you're talking about like, your personal preference, and then he was like, yeah, but it's like a movie and stuff. And then Chris made a good point. It's like, yeah, but if like movies, you can go to Rotten Tomatoes, and there's like a bunch of critics that come up and like the average of all the reviews of the matches, you get the rating. He goes, you're just like the one guy on record. It's like, and it was like, well, yeah, I am kind of, it was like, but like, in the big picture, Dave's ratings are a movie review. Like it is. It's his personal preference of what he saw in the match, and his description of what he puts into it is there's nothing scientific about it. Just if he likes it, not he like, and if he likes guys, the guys he likes are going to get higher matches because bro, I would look at a match like I'm going to look and think like Macho Man matches are better than other matches because I like Macho's style. He was athletic, he threw good punches, he looked good, and Macho's athleticism was off the chain for his size. Right, Macho was going up on the top over the W. He was jumping over the top, and he was how big was he, Konnan? Like he was 245, 250, right? Right. He was like he wasn't like these 195, 205 pounders, right? Yeah, exactly. So it's like I like that style, and he was very basic in his stuff with a couple flashy things he did where he would jump over the top rope to the floor and come off the top rope with the double axe handle onto the floors, so whatever. But it's just a personal preference. But honestly, like in the big picture, it's like way more people should just be rating the matches than Dave being the one guy on record. But he ain't the only
he ain't the only one. The problem is that, and this is not a problem. I just think that what it is Dave was the first guy to really do this. I know he got the idea from somebody, maybe Mike Tenay, but he was the first guy to really do it and monetize it in a big way. And he's watched as much wrestling as anybody that's around now, and he's been to a lot of them in person. And he's a wrestling geek,
He's the New York Times
has a lot
wrestling guys.
Yeah, he's got a lot of credibility. A lot of people don't like him or whatever, but I like Dave. I always have liked Dave, and I grew up reading The Observer, and it helped me fill in the blanks because I came in around the same time, a little bit before you, but kayfabe was still prevalent, so I didn't know what was going on, and that gave me an education.
When was the first time you got a dirt sheet?
I know exactly when it was. There was this guy. His name was Red Bastien. He was like this old school wrestler, and he took me up to San Francisco from San Diego, which is probably, I don't know, 6 hours. And we were in a car, and they were passing this sheet around, and they were kind of talking about it. And I was like, they left it laying there, and I picked it up, and I started to read it, and I was like, oh my God, really?
Like the wrestling news. The wrestling newspaper.
I couldn't believe what I was reading. Right. Yeah. Oh, this guy.
It's not the wrestling magazines. They're talking about all the real. Right. It's right. I had the wrestling magazines growing up and all the things. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I was blown away. I was like, "What is this?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, you can order it here." And then I ordered it, and then I actually started to talk to Dave because this guy from New York, his name is Ron Scholar, who was like a lawyer for Public Enemy and other groups like that. They wanted to do a Lucha Libre show with John Arezzi, the friend of the show. Right. And they were like, they asked Meltzer if he knew me. And I think Dave had already talked to me about something in TJ. So he goes, yeah, I have his number and I'll hook you up. And so Dave hooked up me and Jake and Scholar and all that. But yeah, bro, he educated me a lot.
Well, that's the thing. When I started training wrestling, and I was training, and one kid would he had the torch and the Observer, and he'd bring them to the training. And I was like, I picked it up. I was like, wow, this is like, and I just started training, so I was getting smartened up, and I read it, but I never ordered it because there was always a kid during training that would bring it to the training. Right. So I didn't. Why should I order it? And plus, I was, I'm an up and coming trainer. I'm broke. Everybody's like, right. So it's like, so I don't want to spend whatever it was, everything, right? But yeah, that's how I got introduced to it. But I was like, yeah, it was the wrestling newspaper for the insider.
Even the torch was good, and they used to go over to to the Tijuana shows very early on, like Wade and who was the other
Bruce Mitchell,
Bruce Mitchell, and all those guys from back then. And I used to always just tell them, I know that you guys want to see forearms, and I know you want to see, enziguris, but this is lucha libre, But I always thought the Observer was way better than the Torch.
Yeah, me too. I liked. I thought the Torch's show reviews were more better than Dave, because Dave doesn't really get into like his show reviews more like the Torch had better write ups for show review, stuff.
Right.
So. But
these guys have commentaries after each match.
Yeah, but I thought the writers were, Bruce Mitchell was a Torch writer for years, and I thought his articles was really weird. I was like, what's this guy like? It's kind of weird. Like some of the guys that are not in the business, the way they wrote about the business, like even Dave, but Dave wasn't an opinion writer like the Torch had. The Torch had columnists. Dave was like the way news used to be. He'd just tell you everything that happened. It was like, but then like you see how he's evolved over the years, where it's kind of like news has filtered down into everything, where you kind of have to get your narrative to drive an audience. It's like if you're just boring and just the facts, it's like you're not really drawing from the pie of people that want to hear have their narratives delivered. And we just see it all across the board in media today. So